everybody. This is Emily Nakata Alm, founder and executive director of Destiny City Film Festival. We have here the people behind the feature film Beast Beast, which we're so happy to have in our lineup this year. Welcome, Danny and Ben. I'll have you introduce yourselves and your roles with the film, please.
Great. I'm Danny Madden. I wrote and directed the film.
My name is Benjamin Wiessner, and I produced the film.
Thank you both so much for being here, spending some time to chat with me and talk more about your film, so our audience gets a little more sneak peek into what's behind the project. Of course, we wish we could have these conversations in person with a live audience. That's one of the best parts of a film festival. But this is 2021, and this is great too. So thank you so much.
Of course.
I always like to just start by talking about how this project came to be, how you how it started, how it got off the ground, and learn more about that.
Yeah, Ben, what do you think? You want to talk about that?
Well, do you want to talk about the short first, and then we'll? Yeah,
so we put together in the summer of 2017. My younger brother, Will, who's one of the leads in Beast Beast, had just moved to Los Angeles. I kind of finally coaxed him out westward from Boston. And we were planning on putting a short together. So we got some friends. We co-wrote this short called Krista. And it was just sort of like a gathering of like sort of our theater experiences and sort of like, and this idea of like, sort of the catharsis that you can have for kind of life and for trauma through art, through theater. And so we made this short film, and as I was completing the short film, I was with Ben down in Austin. Ben was producing a movie called Thunder Road that I was working on, and it kind of just felt like in the time of finishing the short and then working on that movie, it was like, hey, we can do this again. So I really started to think about expanding it into kind of including that Krista story in a sort of like larger story.
And from there, what we did was just really try and keep the momentum going. So we had this wonderful actress, Shirley Chen, who was in the short film, and we had a kind of deadline because she was on her way to college at the end of that summer. So it was really nice in some ways, as much as it was frantic and caused some of my hair to fall out, to have that kind of goal where we knew, okay, we really want to put this project together. We feel really strongly about what we can do with this film. And then it was just kind of all hands on deck to put it together however we could. So when the short film premiered at South by Southwest, it won an award from Vimeo. So it was going to go up the next day. So we stayed up all through the night with a bunch of the crew members and put together a Kickstarter for the first little bit of funding and just kind of let the momentum roll from there.
Right. Yeah, that was March 2018. And then we were in production early August. We were filming. So pretty wild.
That is a quick turnaround between the two for sure. And I remember seeing the short film years ago, I think through a film festival colleague, and as soon as I came across Beast Beast, I was like, that's the same actress. Oh my gosh, is that expansion of that short? And then I was really interested in learning more. So that was exciting. She's a fantastic actress. I think you really lucked out with her.
Yeah, and she came in, we were filming her at her high school. We were doing the short at her high school. So our producer, Cara Durrett of the short film, she said, well, hey, why don't we just talk to their drama department and see if any of their kids want to come in and kind of open audition. And Shirley just came in and like blew us away. And we were like, yep. And then through the process of the short, it was like, oh, okay, this girl's like, she wants to kind of like go there in the ways that I, want to push. And, Will, my brother, Will, who's one of the leads in Beast Beast, is like, he's someone who likes to kind of go all the way full in, like lean into it. So we tend to sort of like, when we find people who are of that ilk, we sort of like try and gather them into our little family, So.
And that was a great opportunity too, walking into knowing we wanted to do a feature expansion and having these main characters that we could really write towards their strengths and really push their boundaries and incorporate all of this fun stuff that they could show.
Yeah. So each of the three leads the parts were written for those actors. So Shirley's part, obviously playing Krista, Will, my brother, who, I wrote him it's a very kind of polarizing role. There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of specificity with that character. And it's something that I know that Will would be up for the challenge, of like, he'd worked in theater professionally for years and stuff. And so, I don't know, he likes to kind of like get down to the nitty gritty. And then Jose Angeles, who plays Nito, we met him through a friend in the Bay Area. He's a San Francisco guy. And we met him through our friend Sean Wells, who has worked as the colorist on like almost everything I've directed. And they were working on a project together, and he's like, you got to see this kid. And I watched his reel, and it reflects like that scene in the movie where the girls are sitting on the bed, like watching the like sort of compilation of this kid's tricks. It's like, that was my experience. I was just like, who is this human being? I have to meet this person. And then we hit it off, and we kind of did a screen test and saw that we could kind of like get some performance out of him and see if he's comfortable on camera and stuff. And then ended up writing the part for him. So.
Yeah, what a unique opportunity, like you said, to know who's going to be in the movie and then write those parts for them to their strengths. That's rare. In a film.
Yeah.
So I know, a couple of the actors were in the short and the feature. Were there other folks on the team that came along with you? Like, how much of the team on Beast was part of Krista?
Some of the main kind of crew split off and was like working on other things. But we had, through like Vanishing Angle and projects I'd worked with Ben before, we had a team that we had worked with and made Thunder Road. So we had brought our production designer, Charlie Texter, who did Thunder Road, and Matt Miller, one of the other producers of Thunder Road, was in on Beast as well. But then we got to go to Georgia and have the opportunity to hire a bunch of crew down there. I grew up in Georgia. The film was shot. The brick house in the movie is mom and dad's house. That's where Will and I grew up. Will's character lives in my childhood bedroom, which is so wild to have it all kind of decked out. Art got in there and kind of made it pretty spectacular. But yeah, it was really neat to go down and kind of like make a movie where we grew up. And in the kitchen, you can watch Will age through the years from the movies we've made in that kitchen, and watch him kind of like turn into a grown up through that. And so yeah, it was a really special opportunity to get back there. And I don't know many other people besides Ben who would come with me and like live in my parents' house for 5 weeks and pre-produce a movie, and then have everyone else kind of come down from Atlanta and stuff. And then we shot for 18 days. Was the production schedule.
Wow. Yeah, that would be hectic, I would think, at times. Was there, any challenges that kind of surprised you during that time, or anything that came from left field with the whole production?
It was we were living in left field, I think.
Yeah, and it didn't come from left field. We went to left field. Yeah.
We had this thing at the beginning of each week of production. We would have like a, kind of Ben would cook a family dinner. We'd all sit around and talk about the challenges upcoming in the week. And we'd have, our department heads and everyone. And every week we would just kind of end the conversation like, whew, this would seem really impossible if last week didn't seem really impossible too. It's like, but then I don't know. I mean, I feel lucky enough to have been on enough of these movies that like you realize that's kind of what the job is,
Yeah, I've never made a film that felt easy. And
yeah.
I think that's a really good sign. I think that sort of ambition and being willing to just tackle the obstacles and not try to avoid them, I think is a big part of making these what could be small films really as ambitious as possible.
Yeah. And I mean, one little anecdote is our co-producer Eli Raskin, who flew in, he actually plays like the creep, the guy who sort of who harasses Krista on the street in the short, and then we ended up putting him in the feature as well as the guy who like kind of grabs her at the party. And he came to Georgia as a co-producer. He wanted to help make the movie. He's like, whatever I can do. And so we just needed to find this one apartment, the exterior of Nito's apartment. We couldn't find it. It was just so hard to like get the right feel in the right place, and then also get a place that'll let us shoot there for like $300 or whatever. We had a lot of that.
Few hundred, probably.
And but I remember Eli that was like Ben kind of like gave him this mission, and Eli just went for it. He's driving all over the metro Atlanta area. And I think it was the night before we were gonna go shoot that location. He like went over there slipped and made buds with this really sweet woman who managed the property, and like got it and like slipped right under it, you know, as the opportunity was closing. And it was just like those kinds of things. It's sort of like that's sort of how everything is working, you know, and you're just trying to kind of land one foot in front of the next, you know.
Just like constant problem solving, just one thing after another.
Yeah,
I can imagine. But I mean, at the end of it, you get this, you know, solid film that you couldn't even tell, you know, that it was so stressful, but you can in a way because it was so good. Like you were saying, Ben, like if it's easy, it's not going to be necessarily a great film, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the real advantage for all of that problem solving though is like we knew exactly what we were looking to make. Everything had been storyboarded out and all of that, so it was pretty easy to build that criteria, or it was hard to build the criteria, but then easy to make the decisions of whether or not this was going to be the right choice for the film. So I think when you do a lot of that work in pre-production, you can have like a little bit more of those things that feel like blessings come up because you know exactly what you're looking for.
That makes sense. There are a lot of themes, you know, and threads throughout the film, storylines and topics, you know, as far as, you know, young people growing up and everything that they go through, and then how society impacts them. And I'm curious, you know, did you go into it? What was inspiring you to tell the story? And, you know, what do you hope folks take away from watching it?
And do I feel like I bit off more than I could chew? Yes. Yes. I don't know. It was, I think part of what enabled me, this is the first like feature screenplay that I completed, you know, hadn't crashed and burned on the way. And I think part of it for me was this sort of cushion of, if I write 3 stories and make it feel like one story, I feel like that was my way in, you know? And so when I'm approaching a short film, and in a sense, it's like, you want to just think through what is every opportunity for this story, you know? So then it becomes, what is every opportunity that I can think of that makes sense to put into each of these 3 stories, so that it ends up becoming a lot, and it ends up tapping into a lot of different things. But then I was like, as I was writing, as I was thinking and kind of going back to your high school brain, I realized that I was like, I feel like I was able to kind of change gears so much, even over the course of like an afternoon. You know, you would go from geometry to theater class, and then be hanging out with your friends after school, and then go to hockey practice, and then come home and like do English, you know? And it was like, and you realize that is a demand that you have as a high schooler, and as, you know, and maybe we could all kind of afford to like keep that presence of mind, and think that, hey, we are able to kind of have this kind of pinball machine of things going on in our brain, and have it actually work. So hopefully some of those themes land in ways that reverberate a little bit more with some people, and then others are like, oh, I barely even noticed that. I was focused on this part of it. So I don't know. I mean, again, it's all learning, it's all an experiment, and I hope it works for more people than it doesn't work for. So.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's gonna impact certain people certain ways. People are gonna take certain things from it depending on who they are and their background. And I didn't even think about that. Like, I rarely think about my high school brain. don't go back to that time period very often, but explaining it like that makes a lot of sense. And putting myself in the shoes of the characters in the film, you know, I can picture it. It all makes sense the way that you put it together. What do you hope people take away from seeing the film? I know it's going to be different for everyone, but, you know, what's your goal with that?
Something I really like about films, and maybe why I kind of subscribe to movies and in the way that I do, you know, I'm in the cult of cinema, is because I feel like they can do such a visceral job of putting you in somebody's shoes, like seeing things through somebody's lens. And I like the idea of seeing a singular incident from these 3 vantage points, you know, and hopefully people watching this film kind of click on to one or more of the characters and kind of go, oh, hey, I identify with this person, I'm going to go like this, and then can see that incident, and then suddenly it blasts them open into thinking, oh, but that's how this person sees it, and that's how this person experiences it. And I don't know, I mean, the best thing you can ask from a movie for me is just to kind of make you think about something differently, and I hope this does that for people.
Absolutely. I am a big proponent of that, the power of that in film, and that's what we like to share in our festivals, films that really do provide those opportunities to step out of your norm a bit, and learn about other perspectives. So that fits right in with us. So I know, the Beast Beast has been playing, for a while at festivals, and can you talk about what's next for it?
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, so we're going to be releasing the film in April fully. So we'll hopefully see what's going on with the world a little bit more, but doing some virtual theatrical, and if we can do some drive-ins and everything like that. And then it'll come out on iTunes and Amazon and all of those places at the end of April, on the 27th, I believe.
That's great. That's kind of, is that like the ultimate hope when you go out to make a feature independent film, to get it to that point?
Is just to find the audience, I think, wherever that is. And I think that's such a different path for every film, and especially going through 2020 and 2021, the way that has kind of happened in front of this project is just finding a path where we feel like we can meet the audience and we can bring them something that can give them a real experience in the middle of everything else going on. So we're really excited to start sharing the film in this broader sense and get it out there where people can have their experiences with it. Because one of the things that we figured out kind of early on with our filmmaking was at a certain point, it really does belong to the audience, where as many hours as Danny and I and everybody else on the team could have put into this, the hope is, and the goal should be, that the audience ends up spending more hours with Beast than we've ever been able to put into it. So that's really the goal, and any way that you can make that happen, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And I think thinking about getting it to the right audience in the right way at the right time makes a lot of sense. And, now people are wanting things like that. They're just, really wanting experiences and new entertainment. And so it's been quite a year, I'm sure, as you know, for independent film, for film festivals. But still, here we are, we're still finding new ways to do what we're doing. So that's great. We'll definitely want to, help support, share when that's out, and we can, promote that to our audience too.
I'll be bugging you on email, don't worry.
Yeah, thank you.
More than happy to. Danny, I'm curious, what advice would you give to young filmmakers or young storytellers who maybe haven't made a film, or maybe made one or two, and really at this time, what is your advice to those people?
I've always really enjoyed working on a variety of different things. I think that helps take the pressure off of this one, like, this is the one short film that is going to define me. This is everything about me. If I think of it as like, oh, I want to kind of do this, and then I have this whole other world of animation that I work in, that's just like, hey, I like animation, let's see what I can communicate through that. But then also I have a brother who acts, and then I have a friend who's a cinematographer, so it's like, oh, let's put these things together, and just kind of working within your means, but not feeling like this is like the one thing that's going to define you, not putting enough pressure on it to scare you away from doing it. I think that's something that I always come to, and it's always scary no matter what. It sounds easy to say that, even when I start to type a new screenplay, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, it's the same thing every time, but I don't know, try not to put that kind of pressure on yourself. put all the other kind of pressure on yourself. That's fine.
All the other ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, I know you're a producer. I mean, but do you have any advice for young people who might want to end up producing or get into indie film in any way?
Just doing it. I think being really active and like engaged in the process of filmmaking is such an important part, because you wouldn't use the term weightlifter if you hadn't gone and spent all that time in the gym building up those muscles. And so I think that that's a really important factor in it, is like putting in all of the hours behind the scenes and everything like that that make you into the person who can claim that title filmmaker. And it isn't something that anybody else gives you, and you don't need anybody else's permission. All you have to do is do that thing, whatever it is. Making shorts on the weekends with your friends, doing all of that, that's filmmaking. And that stuff's really important, because when you do get that opportunity, eventually you'll know what you want to do with it, and you'll know how to create, and you'll know how to take something from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to go for it. I agree. If you want to do it, you got to try it and do your best. So, do you have any more projects planned together or separately, or anything cool coming up?
Oh yeah, there'll be some together for sure. That's, nothing too concrete enough to talk about yet, but yes.
I understand.
And we've always got stuff coming out from Vanishing Angle, and we're starting to get engaged in doing a lot more on the educational side as well. So we run like a filmmaking lab for short films becoming features, which is what we did with Beast, but also Thunder Road, and another film of ours, Greener Grass, took that same path. So it's doing those kinds of things and hoping to create a few more opportunities out there for filmmakers.
Awesome. We'll be sure to share website and on social media, the Vanishing Angle, and hopefully people can get connected and learn more about what you're doing. That was the end of my questions. I don't know if y'all had anything else you wanted to share or anything for our audience.
Yeah, I just wanted to express gratitude to everyone who's tuning in and who's checking it out. I know it's just such a weird landscape right now, but the fact that people are kind of giving films like this attention is really special. And I think, remember that it is encouraging for people who are making these movies that people are watching them, even in a plague, that people still have a taste for this kind of thing. It keeps us going for sure. So thank you to everybody.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Ben and Danny, for your time. Talk about Beast and for sharing the film with us. We're really excited for our audiences to see it. We'll keep up with you and see what's next. And we wish you all the best.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks y'all so much.
Thank you.
Take care.